are vampires? That's my first question.
That is a big question. Vampires are many things to many people. But I like to start at the most basic, kind of simplest definition. And a vampire is a being that absorbs or draws on the life force of others to sustain itself. And so you'll find that common trait throughout many of the myths and stories, throughout many cultures, as you mentioned.
And when you say a being, is it a human being or different forms?
That's up to the debate. Some people say that, depends on the mythology, depends on the story. But yeah, being can be many things.
Mm-hmm. And my second question is, are you a vampire?
It depends on one's point of view. I would say yes, but I'm open to other people saying no, and they can hold that opinion.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So yeah. So and the third question, I think, is what we proposed ourselves to talk about is how to be a vampire, and this is our team for a conversation. But before jumping to this topic on how to be a vampire, I really wanted to know more about you. So tell me who Darcy is, where do you live, in which state, and a little bit about your background and your work.
Okay. Well, I guess I can talk about my physical space. I'm from Washington D.C. in the United States. So when you hear all that stuff about on the news about Washington is doing this and doing that and directing the country and all the politicians, I'm in that area. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've lived in this area my whole life. But I still want to be a global citizen. I still want to travel. I just haven't had much chance to do so. Maybe this is part of that. Traveling through creativity and other ways in the occult. I'm still a regular person. I still have a day-to-day life. But Darcis is the night side of that life. It is the vampire that I've built and created and grown into in a way. It's at one point, an identity, but also pure self-expression. So I wouldn't say Darcis is separate from me. I am Darcis, but it is a part of myself that can't always be expressed in every single situation. So there is sometimes a separation, and you can kind of see how maybe I can't be Darcis 24/7 of the day. So that's how you can look at Darcis.
Mm-hmm. And tell me about you as a teenager, maybe at 12 or 13 or 15 years old. How were you back then?
Well,
at school, yeah, with friends at school, in the family.
I was a lot better.
And when did you start? And when did you start feeling this side of Darcis? When did Darcis came up to your life?
Well, my interest in vampires has been lifelong. Like you said, you kind of hear the stories and watch the movies and shows when you're a lot younger, and it really sparks your imagination. So for me, I remember being in middle school, which is in the United States, we have like elementary school, and then we have high school. And between that is 2 years in middle school. And I was sitting at the lunch table and I asked people, why aren't we vampires? Why don't we just be vampires? And other people just thought it was crazy. Thought it was like, oh, it was a far-fetched idea, and it was, and it still is. But I'm a person who doesn't like to sit back and just watch and just consume. I like to create. So to me, there's nothing really stopping one from pursuing anything you want, even if it's outside of the norms. And to find that there's a whole flourishing community of other self-proclaimed vampires just serves to validate that.
Mm-hmm. And were you into sports? And were you a good student? Were you into dating a lot? Tell me about that.
So I did do cross country and track, and maybe a little bit of soccer before that. That's the extent of my sports, but I wasn't really much for weightlifting and all that. I'm pretty skinny, but I was a good student. Not so much now. I'm getting back there, but I was a good student leading up to college. Maybe that's why my tag is death after college, because I kind of flunked in college. That's another story. Dating,